Good afternoon, Dr. Jackson. Please have a seat. Would you like any refreshments?
Thank you, Mrs. Smith, but no, I'm fine for now.
Shall we begin?
Yes, please. I'm afraid that classroom environment fails to provide the ideal learning environment. The majority of the course is spent in a single classroom using mainly two media resources, PowerPoint presentations and the Code of Federal Regulations or CRFS. Using only one method for lectures and then conducting research forms a strict and rigid barrier for right-brain dominant students who may find it heavily taxing. And while PowerPoint introduces a multimedia aspect to the course curriculum, I find it is heavily relied on to fulfill the media requirement. Students appear to be bored during the presentations. I observed several either dozing off, reading, or engaging in what appeared to be non-essential conversation. The methods currently being used in the classroom convey the militant setting that exists outside the classroom.
I understand that we need a better balance, Dr. Jackson, but we are a military facility after all.
Yes, but this approach diminishes the potential for a productive learning because students are directed rather than invited to learn. Try incorporating interaction in the classroom that goes beyond Q&A sessions. Equally important is encouraging the bilateral transfer of data in the brain. This makes it possible to improve retention of the concepts learned during the course and perhaps even help them develop new ideas for application of these concepts.
I see. And you also wanted to go over priming?
Yes, it is clear that many students have little to no experience with emergency management and marine environmental protection. Few students were able to identify emergency response regulations, equipment and/or their purposes. And even fewer could describe the main events which prompted such regulations. This is to be expected at this level of training, but with this course serving as the gateway to their chosen career field, I was under the impression that students already had an interest or background in the areas being covered. Surprisingly, some students didn't appear interested at all in the topics being discussed. I get the impression that they either don't want to be here or aren't entirely sure what to expect. I came across an article published in 2000. I think the author's name was Weber. Anyway, the author notes that traditional colleges and universities tend to neglect active student involvement, and so fail to tap their rich wells of diversity in class. When lessons do not accommodate students' interests and abilities as tools to achieve, learners lose interest and feel disengaged. I see that occurring in the classroom here, but perhaps the problem is that these students haven't been exposed to this sort of content until now. My suggestion is that you create an introduction that will allow students to become familiar with areas they will be expected to gain an understanding in later. This may assist in developing an optimal state for learning, alleviating stress that may arise from the fear of embarrassment when students are asked questions about material they've not covered before.
That is a very interesting idea. I believe we have a few videos with audio footage circulating around the office. And now, I have to ask about the area of novelty.
Yes, I noticed that the stimulus utilized to evoke an enrichment effect is both outdated and repetitive. PowerPoint presentations appear to be the main medium used for enrichment purposes, with the exception of the CFR that seem to be bulky and difficult to navigate. The novelty of a lesson or learning environment refers to the level of diversity and challenge presented to the student. The students seem bored with these approaches, and those who find it difficult to learn with these methods will begin to withdraw from the learning experience entirely. In order to introduce a more diverse learning environment that arouses students' learning, consider changing the setting for sessions that will allow for it in the curriculum. Students need to explore new ideas and try applying newly learned concepts in the real world. You might also consider finding a new method for students to research the federal regulations.
You're right. The students are always excited about the idea of leading the training center for field experience. And now I believe we need to discuss motivation.
Yes, students appear to be unmotivated by the idea of completing individual classes, hence the sleeping, chatting and reading while presentations or lectures are in play. They do seem to realize that satisfying the requirements will ensure they are promoted to the next rank level once their work here has been completed, but fail to embrace the learning experience because they fail to identify with their intrinsic motivation to do so. Jensen notes that when an environment is conducive to learning, positive motivation naturally follows, but he also warns that those who remain unchallenged may end up squandering the opportunity to learn new concepts and ideas. In order to motivate your students to build and improve on their current understanding of course materials, I suggest that you establish what Jensen describes as an ideal learning situation where an equal amount of challenge and stress is equally balanced with empowerment and support.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. It would appear that I have my work cut out for me. Shall we schedule a time for a follow-up visit?